different communication and collaboration tools that we use in Christian Aid, those being primarily the intranet and SharePoint, Slack, and also Office 365 groups. And the cogwheel in the diagram in front of me shows how they all fit together. But what we wanted to do is share a few guidelines or best practice around where we think we can make the most of those tools that we have. So, for example, on the table in front of me, we've broken down on the left-hand side in terms of the size of the audience and examples of what that audience might be, and then talk a little bit around what we recommend the best tool for communicating is and what we recommend the best tool for collaborating is. So, for example, the first line where we've got maybe over 100 people that we're wanting to communicate with, we certainly recommend using SharePoint news feeds and SharePoint sites. The reason for that is that it's a very scalable product, and we know that everybody in Christian Aid has access to our SharePoint intranet and those SharePoint sites. Whereas a tool like Slack at this point in time, not everybody has access to, so that's a little bit more of a specialist audience. The same can be said for the next line, which is departmental meetings. Again, we would recommend using SharePoint news feeds or SharePoint sites. Now, when we break in and talk about smaller audiences, such as team meetings, then a tool like Slack can be really useful. Like I said, not everybody at this time has access to Slack, so you'd have to make sure that all participants in that conversation do have access. Otherwise, obviously, people will start to feel excluded. If not everybody does have access to Slack, then again, SharePoint and team sites and news feeds are perfectly well do the job. Similar for restricted audience and communities of practice. So I spoke a little bit previously in the introduction to Slack about the communities of practice for social media, having meetings on Slack. That's a really good use of that tool, but that can equally be done in SharePoint news feeds, where you might have an audience that doesn't necessarily all have access to the Slack tool. And also we can use Office 365 groups are a good way of building up a collaborative workspace for a smaller group. Finally, when we might be having just groups of maybe 1 to 3 people, so that could be one-to-one meetings, really the best way of communicating there is via email or Skype for Business. And to save documents related to those one-to-one meetings, OneDrive is a really good way of creating a collaborative space just for a small number of people, and it's very easy to share documents with, for example, your line manager, and that could be an example. That could be, a monthly review, and you might both keep a record of what that review would be. And OneDrive is a really good place to store that.